everybody, welcome to the config and technical video for the game Scratch's Director's Cut. We'll get to these files as we get a little farther into this video. They're files I'm going to make available to you. So let's get our screens open here. So I've got the install directory over here on the left. As you can see, this is where I have it installed. Normally I install everything on my D drive because that's my external just for my games. But I was playing with some patches that this game has, and sometimes if you install a game into a spot that isn't the default and you have to do patching, a lot of times that can mess that up. So I put this in its normal install path. My version is from GOG, goodoldgames.com. Yours may be in a different directory when you install it. In this video, we'll be setting up Scratch's Director's Cut, general settings, and advanced where needed. This will hopefully put the game in the best playable state that it can be. And after this video, we'll be getting started into the gameplay. There's no mods for this game at all, so we won't have a video for that. The first thing I want to go over with you here is an NVIDIA setting in my case. I don't know if you'll even have this option. You probably would if you're using an AMD graphics card. I've just always used NVIDIA. But if you do have NVIDIA, I can tell you how to do this setting. But this game utilizes the OpenGL for its API, application programming interface. The other option would be, I'll write it in here, alternative to DirectX, which I think they're on 12, DirectX 12 right now. So you've either got, when you're playing a game, you're right now anyways, you're either going to be playing in an OpenGL or DirectX, mostly in DirectX. Old games, though, like this one, they'll be in OpenGL sometimes, just like the game Penumbra Overture that we recently played, and all of its sequels, and the game Amnesia: The Dark Descent, which I'm sure plenty of you that are into horror know about that game. That game runs on OpenGL. But over the years, I've always heard two things. The first being that if it runs on OpenGL, it is most likely a game designed on or for Macs. I don't know if that's completely true, but I've heard it a lot of different times, which doesn't mean anything bad or good. It's just interesting, you know. And the second is if it's a game running on OpenGL, make sure that triple buffering is on to help reduce input lag. So I've always done this with no negative effects. I mean, graphics cards are so beastly now, you're not gonna lose frame rate anyway. So let's go turn that on real quick. If you use NVIDIA for your GPU graphics card, I'll show you 3 different ways to get into the NVIDIA control panel. So you can press the Windows key and just type in NVIDIA or IVI, and then it will bring it up here and you can click it. Or you can usually right-click your mouse, and a lot of times it'll be in here. And if it's in your taskbar anywhere like it is here, then you can get to it from there. Either GeForce Experience stuff or the control panel is here. So that's 3 different ways you can get into it. Well, let's get that open. I think up here, desktop, add desktop context menu, show a notification tray. That's how you get those on in the tray or in the right-click context menu. You just have to put those 2 check boxes on under desktop. So what you want to do is be on Manage 3D, go to Program Settings, and if you've ran the game recently, you can usually click your drop down and you'll find it close to the top or already be on it. So this is the game. It's showing it where I've had it previously installed though. So that won't work. I'll have to just find it. So you would go to add. A lot of times it'll be here as well at the top. There it is. So find it, add selected program, and then what I always do, we can take a look here. I'm not going to go into detail with all this, but you can see this would be like some video I could do for you guys if anybody was ever interested in it, is to show you my settings in more depth for NVIDIA and explain why. A lot of people just tell you, oh, use these settings, and they give you no explanation as to what the settings do or why you change it to on or why you change it to off. I'm going to take a sip of water. So I could definitely make an hours-long video just going over this stuff, because I've messed with this stuff so much throughout the years. But I'll just slowly go through. These are my global settings. Like that setting right there, I think is a smart setting. It's a newer setting in the NVIDIA settings. It hasn't always been in here. But background applications, max frame rate. Instead of making your graphics card run itself really hard at 60 or 120 when your game is in the background because you have it paused or whatever, have it drop to like 30, you know, and you'll take some just strain off the wear and tear of your card. But these are all here's my card that I actually have, NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2070 Super. This is going to be a long video, by the way, probably an hour or more. But these are all of my default settings. You can see triple buffering here I have off by default because most games are in DirectX. But in this case, when you're in program settings and you've got your game in here, which there, what you want to do is I have it in here by default. When you add a game manually, it gives you the options to overwrite some of those global settings, but not all of them. So you're still using your global settings as your base for your game, but you can adjust a single setting, which is what we want to do. So go down here and find triple buffering and just put that sucker on and click apply, and that's it. And if it doesn't, it's not going to cause any negative or ill effects on your game, and if anything, it's helping the game as far as your input latency between your mouse and keyboard or your gamepad or whatever. It's just something I always do for OpenGL, if nothing else. Sometimes, you know, I'll force vertical sync on in here, and vertical sync can, you know, as a side effect, cause input lag. But when you don't have a G-Sync monitor, or I don't know if all the 4K monitors now automatically address this with G-Sync. G-Sync basically being automatic vertical sync, so you don't have to control it at the hardware level. The TV itself is controlling it, but I always make sure, if not in the game that vertical sync is on, that it's forced on in here for 60 FPS in my situation. 1080p, 60 FPS. But I always do it because the negative thing of not using vertical sync is you get screen tearing. And look up screen tearing and look at examples on YouTube and then pictures on Wikipedia and all that. I would rather have minor input lag, since I'm not a speedrunner, at the gain of not having to deal with screen tearing, because screen tearing looks terrible. So if I can't turn that on in a game, I'm coming in here and this is a setting I'm forcing on. And I would always recommend just to force it on. Don't use adaptive or fast or none of that. So that's all you need to do in here. We've saved it. It's locked in. We're done with that. So now let's get back to our stuff here. So yeah, all my files over here. This is the main executable, Scream. Okay, so we've done that and knocked that out. Now we get into the general options. These are going to be the options within the game itself. I will provide a game manual in PDF form that you can download from my Google Drive. You'll find this link. In the video description. I'm putting it here just for my own memory to put it in the video. but this will be in the video description for this video. It should be. And this will take you to the PDF, which is one of the files on here. This is the manual. I'll go ahead and show it to you. Here's the cover of the game. It's got a pretty sweet cover. It's pretty kick-ass, I think. So there's 18 pages, but I mean, you know, sometimes it's cool to have a manual to reference. You know, there's some stuff in here about the story that I'm not going to spoil yet. We'll learn about the story when we play. Characters in the game. Locations. Yeah, these are the main locations in the game. The house, the estate itself. There's a chapel, a greenhouse, a crypt, and a garden. These are all places we can go. Menu, talking about the menu, and here's where it starts talking about the settings. I'm going to talk to you about this, so I'm not going to read all this from here because I'm going to do it in my notes. How to play. How to play, what the cursor turns to and looks like. You have a hand, an arrow, which looks like almost like a flint stone, and a clock watch. Like a stopwatch for when the game is loading or saving. Here's shortcuts that we'll go over, basically the controls of the game. This game does come with a quick save and quick load option just by default, which is really nice. But I'm going to include a link for this for you to download yourself, and you can peruse over it at your leisure. So that's one file. Okay, so the first option we're going to encounter in the game is hints, and if you leave it on, you're obviously going to get hints, but unless you want a harder challenge, I would just leave it on. If you want to make things harder, then leave it off. Surround music, set this to on to give the best sound. Obviously you want surround sound over stereo or mono. Camera speed is how quick the camera will move based on what you have your cursor doing. I think normal is probably going to be fine in most cases. Text speed, just how quickly text scrolls by. In conversations, normal is usually good enough. Gamma correction, this is just brightness in the game. The games seem to use both of those words. You know, either they say gamma or brightness. Sometimes you might see contrast. They usually end up all meaning the same thing. I would normally say leave this off. I tend to have some of my settings. I know in NVIDIA I have some settings on to make my black color, not really color, but the blacks in the games look darker or a richer dark. So it tends to make horror games look darker. But I always, for YouTube videos, I brighten most all the horror games I do play. Because I've always heard from different people that, you know, when you go through the recording and encoding process for your videos, and by the time you upload them and then YouTube does whatever it does to your videos when it converts and does all of its stuff, that it tends to make games darker than how they look when you first record them. So I'm brightening stuff by like 5% total. But in the case of this game, the fact that it's old style graphics and it's an older game, it's going to be pretty dark. So I would suggest putting it on low. And if that's too bright, turn it off completely. I'm going to keep it on low, and I'm also still, I think, going to brighten it 5% more during editing, so it's not too dark for you guys. So yeah, it can be a dark game, increase this more if needed. And I said what I've already said, I'll brighten it in video editing. The next setting, which is the most complicated one, is slideshow mode and alternate controls. A lot of the old point-and-click games would have the cursor change to an arrow or finger pointing representing direction you would move up, down, or back, left or right. A good example is the original Myst. You can do that in this game if you want to. This game does offer some alternatives to that style of movement, though. I will cover these two settings a little further in this video. I want to provide a visual representation of these options, as it can be a little confusing to just explain it. So then that's that category of general options, and now we move on to controls. Here's a breakdown of the controls in the game. This is all listed in that PDF, but I went ahead and wrote it out here too. Left mouse button is execute action, move, look, take, etc. Right mouse button is open or close inventory. It just pops up on the screen. And then arrows are the WASD, WASD for instant rotate in that direction. But this game does not move like a normal, it doesn't move like a normal modern game. There's no reason you should want to use the arrow keys or WASD at all. You can completely, basically just play this game with the mouse like you can hidden object games. So I don't suggest you use the arrows or WASD keys at all. F1 on the keyboard is enable or disable the hints we went over. F2 is enable, disable surround sound. F5 is your quick save. F7 is your quick load. F9 is cycle camera speed. That's how quick the camera moves. Then the text speed is F10, and then the brightness correction is 12, which I said to just set on low. And then the escape key will skip cutscenes, dialogues, access your menu, so that you can hard save, which save in the menu and make a physical save. It's separate from a quick save, and also quit the game. So these are your main controls. I suggest quick saving, is shown above, and hard save often as well. By hard saving, I mean press escape key and then save your game from the menu. That's what a hard save would be. They'll be listed in there. I think the hard saves list by the area you're in, and the quick saves literally say like quick save. So it just gives you like 2 different saves in case something happens to one, then you've got a backup. This is a mouse-driven game primarily. You can use a third-party keybinder program, which you can assign keyboard actions to your mouse, such as quick saving or quick loading, which is what I'll be doing. Then you can ignore the keyboard completely. There's a couple of different options. I use an old one called glove pie, like a glove you put on your hand and a pie you eat. Silly name for a program, but it just lets you assign, say, like I key on the keyboard for your inventory in a particular game. You can put that onto one of your mouse buttons on the side or something, so that you don't have to press it on the keyboard. So I'm using glove pie to assign quick loading and quick saving, and the escape key to get to the menu on my mouse. So my 2 side mouse buttons do quick saving, quick loading, and I can push my mouse scroll wheel in, like the button, push it in, and that will open up the menu. So then I can just ignore the keyboard. It's cheating, sure, but whatever. You're just playing this game by yourself. Do what you want to do. Okay, patches. It's a little involved here. I will provide patches for both the original 2006 version and the 2007 Director's Cut. You'll find these links to my Google Drive in this video's description. I pulled these straight from the PC Gaming Wiki if you are curious. You can find the link in my YouTube banner on my channel to get to these people. And I recommend that you look up any game you're playing on PC before you play it, and scan over the game's wiki channel on here, because this is where I pull a lot of my adjustments and fixes from. any of them that are useful, I'm applying to all of my games and then coming up with other ones. So you can always find that link up there in my banner on the YouTube. So these patches, the original game and the director's cut, these links will be just like this in the description. This is just for my reference. So put this like in intention, the A's. I do, however, strongly recommend that you use my links to get these, as I include readme.txt files that I've made for them both, explaining the details of the patching. And those are the other two files you're seeing right here. I'll show you. I'll take all three of these and I'll right click and do a Norton scan just so you can see they're clean. I don't want anybody to think I'm trying to put viruses on my Google Drive for people to download. I'm just making an easy method for you guys to get a nice clean, no ads and bullshit place to download helpful stuff that you're going to need in a lot of these config and tech and modding videos. So it's clean. There's no viruses on these. So this is the original one. We'll take a look at it here. There's the patch. It's an executable. And then here's the README I wrote. And it says this is only for the original version of Scratches, not for the director's cut. Okay, and the other one here, this one has an update and a patch. And here's its information. I wrote all of this out for you guys. You're not going to see this on the PC Gaming Wiki. I'm not saying you have to download these files from me, but if you want to get access to all of the text documents and stuff in here, I recommend you just get them from me. But I'm giving credit to them because that's where I found these releases. I'm not taking credit for making these. I'm just providing them. So, right. So the first releases had a game-breaking bug that would crash on the last visit, the extra chapter that you play after you beat the game. They came out, this is director's cut we're talking about, they came out with two versions. The second version, which I'm pretty sure is what I have a digital version of, it came on 2 discs, and it contains the patches on another disc, I guess completely by itself or something, to the most recent release. So, right, an install order. So that's what I'm saying, is if you know for sure, which I think if anybody has this game at this point, they're going to have a digital version of it anyway. But if you had 2 disc version physical, then you would know that you have the patches on there. If you only have 1 disc, then you're going to need probably the patch or the update or both to fix that possible bug that's in the single disc first release version. So the install order you want to do it is update and then patch. You want to use the update first and then patch the update, and that'll fix everything. And here's what my experience was. My Scream EXE, which I'll show you here. You right click on the executable, go to properties, click on details. You can see right here, my file version is 0.94358 with the product version of 0.93. 2006, which would actually be 2007 because this is the director's cut. But anyway, you can see the file version of the executable. So when I patched it, it changed it to this. This stayed the same, but it changed to this from 0.358 to 0.27, which to me looks like a downgrade, meaning I already had the patched version, so the patch didn't benefit me. And then I tried to install the update, and when I run my Scream.exe, it wouldn't even run anymore. The game wouldn't even run, or it just stayed on a black screen. As it installed an older version, it seems. Yeah. Just confirming here what I'm telling you. tried to install the patch, said the exe didn't need it. That's right. Yeah, sub-executable didn't need it. So that was my experience trying to put the patch in the update. I didn't need it, and it made the game not run. And what I already have seems to be the most recent version. So hopefully you have this version or better, higher the number the better, because it's a later release. But I think that's probably the latest release. And mine's a GOG version, which it's not on the I'll show you the Steam store page here. Scratches. It's not on GOG anymore, but it's still on Steam. It says the director's cut. It's really got the release date wrong, because the 2006 was the original version, which was not a director's cut. But if you scroll down here and look at it, you can see how OpenGL 1.2, how minimal the requirements are. Alternate ending that might be more shocking than the original. A new chapter of The Last Visit will have you back at the house 10 years after the events of the original. Michael's diary, that's how you first play, with more clues and thoughts from the main character, upgraded graphics, and an eerier soundtrack. Yeah, supposedly the director's cut also improved graphics. But there's reviews and whatnot, but there's no way to buy it. So, I mean, they developed it, and I don't know if they published it at the time. Maybe they did. But anyway, something between the developer and the publishers now, whoever owns Synscape. I don't know if they own it now, but anyway. So that gets over the patches and the updates. That's the only 3 files I'm going to have up there. These you can just see are screenshots of the examples of the exe that I have from just my install that's fine and is working. And then after applying the update, how it altered it, the file version. So, interestingly, yeah, it doesn't matter, but it's just reference information for you guys. So this will all be on a Google Drive link in the description. Let's get back to the main stuff. Okay. Depending on your game version and situation, you may or may not need these patches. I don't know if the crash, the bug in the last visit, I don't know if it's supposed to happen at a certain place every time, or if it's just happenstance that it might happen. I don't know. I think literally I've only played through that DLC once, arguably, and I think I've played through the base game 2 or 3 times. It's a cool game to come back to, but I don't remember having any crashes. So, yeah, and I wouldn't recommend patching the game mid-playthrough either. If you do, you're likely to corrupt your save file, which will make you have to restart the game. So do any patching first before you start. I'm not going to cover the details again here in the video, even though I just did. If you're interested in playing Scratches for yourself, please take time to download those patches and read the information I have provided in those readme.txt files. Yeah, I said the gist of the Director's Cut patch is the following. The first releases of the Director's Cut version came on one disc, and it had a bug that could cause the game to crash when playing The Last Visit DLC. Revised releases of the Director's Cut version came with 2 discs that included the patches. My version is from GOG, and I'm assuming it is pre-patched. Even with or without patches, this is still an old game. You may run into issues regardless, so save and save often, like I said. Utilize the quick save with the shortcuts, and then press escape and click save to do a hard save, and then you'll have 2 saves. Do that often. I'm hoping we can get through without issue on my end, you know, when I play through for you guys on YouTube. Okay, the next thing I want to go over with you guys is the configuration file for this game. This is the main file for all the settings, which there's not many. This is where it is found for me once you install and run the game. If you had a Steam version, it's going to install in your Steam directory, but this is where GOG wanted to install it. Well, no, that's for the game. It should still probably show up in the same place here on your computer. I don't guess I made a shortcut for it, because we're going to be looking at Scream config. No, I didn't. So I'll show you. Open in my C drive. So I'm going to go users. Your username here. I go by Penumbra or Penumb. Yours will be different, so you'll have to manually change that. And then you want to look for app data, which may be a hidden file for you. If it is, go to View, click on Options, go to View, and show hidden files, folders, and drives, and click Apply. And then it will show anything in there that's hidden. And it should appear, and it'll look like one of these files, like slightly grayed out, indicating it's normally a hidden file. And when you're done, you can just put it back on Don't Show, Apply, and then it'll hide it. But usually this is hidden by default, but I've gone in here, right-clicked, Properties, and then make sure hidden is unchecked. But once you're in there, then you go to Roaming, Nucleus for the game's developer, Scratches, Director's Cut, and then these represent your quick saves and your saves, I believe. I'm not sure which is what, but they are related to saves and quick saves. And then you have the Scream CFG. Let's open this here. Yeah, I don't have to move my screen here. Don't even need to open it because I actually wrote it. So open this file and compare your settings to mine, which are this. So you can see it's just that. So I'll go ahead and close this. Now that you know how to get to it and what it is. So basically, just make sure it looks like this. This is what the width and the height should be. You can try to force this game into 1920 by 1080p, but it's not going to look correct. It's going to cut the picture up. It'll be messed up. This game is designed to run at this resolution, so you don't want to change it. Just leave it at that. All of this should be just these settings. I would make sure, I think I described it down here. Important things to understand: the width and the height should stay at 1024 by 768 resolution. This is the resolution the game is intended to run at. If you try to force it to run in something else, it will just mismatch textures and it won't look right. I've already tested it, believe me, it doesn't work. Make sure VSync is set to 1 and rate is set to 60 so you don't have any screen tearing, and that you basically sync your refresh rate to your frame rate that you're going for, which in this game should be 60. If you tried to run this at 120, which I don't think it's capable of anyway, it would probably break it. So by default, I would definitely put those on 1 and 60. Basically, your .cfg should look the same as mine. So if something's different, change it to this and use these as your base settings and go from there. So that will cover that. Okay, and then we'll finish this video by going into the game directly, and I'll run down the settings we just talked about with you. And there I will also explain the differences between the slideshow mode and the alternate controls to give you a better understanding of what they do. So I really appreciate you watching this video here. I'm going to do a little quick edit cut, and we'll see you in the next part. Thanks. Bye. Hello everybody. Welcome to the last half of the config and technical video for Scratches, the director's cut. Here we're going to just do a visual representation of what I just went over with you in those notes. I know some of you may be thinking, why doesn't he just read those notes or talk about that stuff while he's already in the game showing us the actual menu? It's like, yes, I could do that way, but I kind of think it's better to have a separate text-only representation and then the visual. I kind of like having them be separate from each other, because I think some people can learn better from visual training and other people can learn better from text. Some people might like to make their own notes, and it may be easier for them to recall learning something that way. So that's partly why I separate them. So when you start, you're going to have the option to pick a new game. I'm not going to click it because if I do, it'll lock me into starting a new game. But it'll give you the choice of doing the director's cut, which is the base game, or the last visit. And it looks like you can start the last visit just immediately without having to even beat the base game. I think that may be the case. I definitely don't recommend you do that. Play the director's cut first and then play the last visit. But that's how you get into the normal game, and the DLC stuff is from the new option. And then setup is the settings. Look at your load game, your save states, your saves and your loads and your load states basically, and then quit. So we can get into all of this once we're already in the game. Some games make you come all the way to the menu just to get to some settings, but all of these are accessible in the game. So I'm just going to go ahead and load into my quick save here. I've purposely got us staring into a low quality looking texture of bushes and trees because I don't want to actually spoil the game. I think I did something similar when I did the config and tech video for the game Firewatch. I just kind of turned and stared at a bush so I didn't spoil any of the game for you guys before we actually get in the gameplay. But if you press escape here, bring us right back in here and we can look at the setup. So hints, here's the hints. I'm going to leave them on. I may get stuck in this game. I'll be interested to see how long I stay stuck in some puzzles. It's probably been, I don't know, 3 or 4 years maybe since I played this game, maybe. I feel like I played it recently, but I feel like I also haven't. So I'm still going to leave them on. I recommend you do it to leave them on. Here's the surround music. Camera speed, text speed, I recommend normal for everything, unless you need to go lower or higher, and then just start on normal. Then gamma correction, you can see what it does here but just by changing it. Everything gets brighter, so you can see. And yes, I normally would say leave it on disabled. But this is a dark game and it's an old game, so I'm going to put it on low, and you should probably put it on low, and if it's too bright or too dark then adjust it from the low setting. I'm going to put it on low, and when I edit the videos for the gameplay I'm going to increase my brightness and editing by 5%. Okay, so here's the complicated slideshow mode and alternate controls. I made some notes. Okay, there's basically 4 different combinations you can have here. You can have slideshow mode be off, and you can have alternate controls be off or disabled. And it basically makes it so the mouse edge free moves, meaning when you drag, just like it is right now, when you get this cursor close to the border, you can see this game, it doesn't let me go all the way over. This is a 4:3 aspect ratio game. It can't be widescreen. It's in 1024 by 768 resolution and 4:3 aspect. And it does kind of do the widescreen black bars on the top and bottom, because you can see the game is actually visible up here. It's just it doesn't show graphics. Same down here, it doesn't. but when you have it on off for slideshow and off for alternate controls, when you basically get the cursor to the very edge here, that's when it will start moving you in a direction to look up, look down, look left, or look right. So I'll show you a representation of that. Going back to the, oops, I don't want to quit. Go back to the game. So the hand and the cursor moves. It doesn't stay stuck in the middle of the screen. But as you get to the edges here, it starts to move your view just by moving the mouse there. I'm not clicking and dragging. There's like, you know, amount of space there. The hand, the quicker you move it there, the faster it's going to move. And that has to do with the other setting in here, the camera speed setting. So the faster or the lower you have that setting dictates how fast the screen is going to move when you move the cursor up here. So that's what that does, which I think is the way I'm going to use it, and I'll explain why. Let me show you a few other things about the black bars on the top and the bottom. Right, so when you right mouse click, you bring up your inventory. And right now we have, I think it's a journal, a magnifying glass, a key, one's a suitcase, and one is a typewriter, because we are a writer, a book writer in this game. So we have our stuff in our suitcase, our clothes and our toothbrush or whatever, and we have a case for our typewriter. So for some reason, I think they should have utilized, if they didn't make the graphics appear all the way up here in the black, they should have moved the inventory up onto the black area, I think, instead of having it go over the actual graphics. But when you right click, it fades the background and brings these visible. You use the magnifying glass to tell you more information about what is in your inventory. You do have an inventory in this game. And the space on the bottom, the black on the bottom, is left there for the subtitles. But I don't think the black space at the top is ever utilized. Like I said, they make the inventory items appear right over the graphics instead of shifting them up here, which I think they should have done. So that's the first style of movement here I want to explain to you. And I called it mouse edge free move. That's the best way I could describe it. That's by turning everything off. The next combination is having slideshow mode off, but enabling alternate controls. So let's turn that on. By doing that, it puts you in a mode which I'm calling centered normal movement. So what this does, it locks your hand in the middle of the screen, and you don't have to move your cursor up to any edge to get any screen movement. It just automatically starts moving, which you think, yeah, this is pretty good, ideal, most freedom and fluidum. I was trying to say freedom and fluid at the same time and came up with fluidum. Sounds like a German word, fluidum. So it gives you freedom and fluidity of mouse movement like this. But the problem that happens is when you go to menus, or when you say you load in and it shows anytime it shows the stopwatch, the game's loading. So when you go back without me touching the mouse, watch what it does with the camera. The camera always wants to jut and shift in a downward motion like that. So every time you load, like every time you go through a door, every time you go to your menu, and you come back, watch, it's going to do it again no matter where the mouse is. It always moves like that. Coming out of your inventory doesn't do it, but you're going to have a lot of load screens in this game. They're not long, but it's always going to make your mouse like do that instead of just be where you left it. So sadly, because that's the way the second setting here, centered normal movement works with slideshow mode off and alternate controls enabled, even though they're like the best combination, I think, to be the most modern, they have that weird glitch where it always shifts the camera. So it doesn't matter if your hand's on the mouse or not. and that becomes really annoying quickly. So you're most likely not going to want to use that setting. So that goes to the third option. The third option is putting slideshow mode on and disabling alternate controls. This is what I call click edges to move. So I'll show you what this looks like. Well, I already spoiled it and showed you the house. Can't hide everything. So now the cursor you get on the menu screen, the stone, you still have a hand in your area here when you interact with stuff, but the closer you get to the screen, it turns. And if you click with your left mouse, it does like a single frame adjustment up or down, which this is how something like the original Mist worked, which you may like, and you may want to use this, and I would not fault you for wanting to use this control scheme. This is like classic point and click movement control scheme right here, simply mouse driven. So if you use the keyboard like up, down, or left on the keyboard, it does kind of the same thing as what clicking does. But you're going to have to use your left and mouse click, your left and right mouse clicking for stuff. So that's that setting. There's one more final one. We're getting to the end of this video here. So the next combination is leaving slideshow mode on and leaving alternate controls on. These are the 4 different states you can put it in. This I call centered click to move. Go back. And notice none of these other ones do that weird shifting of the camera, except for the centered normal movement. So this one, like, you kind of see the hand when you move the mouse quick, but you're seeing that stone representing the movements. And so you have to literally like keep on clicking the left mouse like to move. This is the worst control scheme, and one you definitely would never use. Even the arrow keys still kind of do normal, but I'm having to spam left mouse click to get that to move in that up position. It's really weird, so I would not recommend that. You're either going to want to use off and disabled. No, not that, sorry. You're either going to want to use off, off and enabled, which gives you centered mouse movement. Show it to you again. This is the one that's going to be the most modern, where your mouse stays in control in the center. And like, you know, it'll change into a finger pointing whenever you can walk forward. That's what that indicates. And, you know, depending on how quick you move the mouse. So this is arguably the best. But, like I said, if you're looking up here at the top of the trees and you escape or you load, when you walk into a door and you come back out into the normal game, it's going to do this to you. It's going to shift downward for some reason. I've looked online, I've tried various ways to keep that from happening, but I can't seem to do that. If any of you know how to make it not do that using this control scheme, I would like to know. So as much as I would love to use that, I'm probably not either going to use it. What I am probably going to use, and what you'll probably use, is I think it's on and disabled. Let me just confirm. Yeah. The one where you can completely move your mouse. So if you're close enough to something and it's not dead centered where your mouse would be on the other one, you can move your hand over here and pick it up. But then all you have to do, it doesn't matter how close you get to the edges, is you know, just get there until you see this, the hand turned into a stone, and then left click, just like that. Like I said, if you're looking up, you go into a menu or a load screen, you come back out, it's not going to shift. It stays like it should. So That's the one I called click edges to move. You have to move the mouse to the edge to move. I will show you again. This is, you want to put oops, click back instead of setup. You want to make slideshow mode on and alternate controls be disabled, and that'll get you that movement. So that's all the settings. That's about everything there is to describe. I'll describe the interface a little more whenever we get into the first gameplay video. I'll explain how the inventory works. We'll look at the inventory we already have. Then we'll start exploring this estate and the outskirts a little bit of it too. So I appreciate you watching the Config and Tech video. Hope it's interesting. And I will see you in the next video where we get directly into the gameplay. Thanks for watching. Bye.